As always, welcome to Hannity tonight. We have multiple stories breaking at this hour, and we begin with what has now become a serious, frequent, racist, anti-Semitic problem within the Democratic Party at a very high level, and a real and clear fear and inability to address this problem and deal with it properly. Now, it's no secret the Democratic Party has long been obsessed with identity politics. Every 2 years, every 4 years, Republicans, anyone that opposes them, racist, sexist, misogynist, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, they want dirty air, water, and kill Granny. But tonight, that very same party is refusing at this hour to stand up to the bigots and the virulent anti-Semites inside of their own ranks. It's just the latest display of gutless, spineless cowardice at the highest level of what has become this new extreme radical socialist Democratic Party. And it's our top story in tonight's multi-pronged monologue. Now, early this week, House Democratic leadership was embarrassed yet again by freshman Congresswoman Ilhan Omar over yet another blatantly anti-Semitic statement. Now, this time referencing her colleagues and their alleged dual loyalty to Israel. Now, that historically has been used by other virulent, hateful anti-Semites. Now, Congresswoman Omar is completely and totally obsessed with hating the only democracy and our biggest ally in the Middle East, Israel. Once even tweeting, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Israel's the victim of terror. Now, that tweet is just the tip of the iceberg, given her recent incendiary statements about, quote, Jewish money controlling Congress and other conspiracy theories about the evil Jewish state. Well, it's pretty obvious that Congresswoman Omar is an anti-Semite. But that apparently doesn't matter to most congressional Democrats. Earlier today, they were forced to put aside a new resolution condemning anti-Semitism. Another answer to that, they couldn't get the votes within their own ranks. Now think about this. The Democratic Party can't get enough votes to pass a resolution condemning hatred, discrimination against Israel and Jewish people. And the Democrats are now proposing what is a generic alternative bill that will condemn the hatred of Jews and Muslims without dare calling out the radical hatred of Omar at all. Now, today, our own Peter Doocy caught up with the Congresswoman to see what she thought about the proposed resolution. Let's take a look at this.
Congresswoman Omar, it seems like there's some confusion among your colleagues. Are you anti-Semitic? Congresswoman, can I just quickly ask, would you support this resolution condemning anti-Semitism? My only question, just would you support the resolution condemning anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry? Congresswoman, would you support the resolution condemning anti-Semitism?
Yeah.
Congresswoman, would you support the resolution condemning all forms of bigotry?
Her silence is deafening. Now we have tonight 11 pro-Israel groups. They are now calling for Omar to be removed from the prestigious Foreign Affairs Committee, but as per usual, there's absolutely no rush to condemn anti-Semitism on the left. Instead of taking punitive action, Speaker Pelosi is making excuses for the Congresswoman. Now, Pelosi in particular, she's obviously afraid of taking this stand. Why? Because Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is publicly supporting Omar. She's tweeted out, quote, if we called resolutions on sexist statements, a good chunk of Congress, well, would be gone. To jump to the nuclear option every time leaves no room for corrective action. So I ask everyone that we practice calling in before calling out. So that means, without a doubt, House Speaker Pelosi is terrified of, yes, being overthrown by even more radicals within her own party. So tonight it's pretty safe to say that the real Speaker of the House for the Democrats is Ocasio-Cortez, not Nancy Pelosi. She's calling the shots. And sadly, this kind of apathy about racism, bigotry inside the Democratic Party, it's nothing new. Hannity history lesson. Remember the Democratic governor of Virginia, the Democratic attorney general, recently embroiled in a blackface scandal. Over the weekend, a Democratic legislator from Maryland forced to apologize over casually using the N-word repeatedly. Then, of course, there is the infamous Linda Sarsour, one of the biggest anti-Semites in the country. Now, Sarsour frequently advocates for Sharia law. She once applauded the genital mutilation of Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She recently blamed the, quote, Jewish media over negative press. And Sarsour is beloved by so many on the left. In fact, she even shared a stage with many prominent Democrats, including recently, presidential contenders Bernie Sanders and Kirsten Gillibrand. And earlier, Sarsour wouldn't even say whether Israel and the Jewish people who live there have a right to even exist. Let's take a look.
Linda, do you believe the state of Israel has a right to exist?
We'll answer questions later after the press conference.
Thank you, Linda.
I'll be happy to answer that.
Are you going to take questions, Linda? Do you believe the nation of Israel has a right to exist? Do you believe the nation of Israel has a right to exist? Why are you blocking me, sir? Why are you blocking me? Well, these guys are jumping in front of me. Linda Sarsour, does the nation of Israel have a right to exist?
We are currently...
She is ignoring me. Why are you guys pushing me here?
To actually expand the language.
She said she would answer questions.
Why are you here?
She said she would answer questions. She is not. Why is she not answering questions?
Do you work for Israel? How much do you get paid?
Simple question. Again, deafening silence. So what's next for these anti-Semites? What, are they going to support Iran? And there's no surprise here after all, because Sarsour has frequently associated with the vile, hate, racist anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan, who routinely calls Jews satanic and much worse. Take a look.
Here the Jews don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man.
The powerful Jews are my enemy.
Farrakhan, by God's grace, has pulled the cover off of that satanic Jew.
Call me an anti-Semite. Stop it. I'm anti-termite.
As tonight's Hannity's history lesson continues, prominent members of the Democratic Party actually associate with that bigot. And freshman Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib even published an article in Farrakhan's radical newspaper. Remember, President Obama met with Farrakhan prior to his run for president. Of course, this photo that you see right there was kept out of the public eye by Democratic members of Congress and other Obama supporters until after Obama left office. Well, how does that picture make all of you Obama lovers feel tonight? And, of course, Obama lovers ignored our reports at the time that Obama worshipped at the Church of GD America with anti-Semitic preacher Jeremiah Wright. This is where Obama adopted black liberation theology. And you may also recall Reverend Wright blamed the Jews for causing a rift in his relationship with the president. And meanwhile, nearly every Democrat who wants to run for president has got to go kiss the ring of the Reverend Al Sharpton. It is an absolute necessity. By the way, that's the same Al Sharpton who was accused of inciting violence against Jews in the 1990s, talked about interlopers, made statements like, quote, if the Jews want to get it on, tell them to pin their yarmulkes back and come over to my house. And let's not forget Reverend Jesse Jackson, referring to Jews as Hymies, New York Hymietown. That's your radical, extreme, and yes, anti-Semitic Democratic Party. They claim to have a monopoly of compassion. In reality, they could care less about one of the most vulnerable and oppressed minorities in modern history. All right, now we move along to our Hannity Watch tonight on a very important immigration report and investigation with many new developments tonight. For Democrats, politics comes above all else. The same reason their immigration policy can be boiled down to two words: hate Trump. Hating Trump is more important than DACA. More important than helping dreamers. It's the same reason that Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is this week calling her colleagues racist, because they support immigration laws. Now, when it comes to securing our southern border, the contrast between the president and those on the other side of the aisle is striking, as we will show you. All right, as you can tell, by probably only one of those strategies is based in reality. We'll get that shot up in a minute. Now, only President Trump's agenda truly cares about the safety and security of everyone in this country. President wants to stop the drugs cartels and the gangs and the human trafficking. Democrats, their friends in the media, they would rather use the crisis on our southern border to bash the president. All, of course, while putting their heads in the sand, saying manufactured crisis over and over again.
So this is really a manufactured crisis on many levels, manufactured by the Trump administration.
A wall is a colossal waste of money for a crisis that doesn't exist.
Do you believe there is a national security crisis on the border?
No, I think there's a problem, not a crisis.
President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis.
This is a manufactured crisis. No crisis exists, and anyone making the argument is most likely guilty of fear-mongering.
We'll tell him on the border, even conservatives, is that there is a national security crisis.
This artificial crisis of the president isn't going to justify his appropriating money for a wall.
So this is a manufactured crisis, and a crisis that manufactured by the Trump administration.
All right, now let's go back to that tape that got corrupted and popped out of the machine. Anyway, this is the comparison. Trump and the Democrats couldn't be more clear. Take a look.
Its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing, and we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Immigration and customs enforcement, customs and border protection. I want to let you know that we love you, we support you. We will always have your back, and I think you know that.
The wall is an immorality. It's not who we are as a nation.
Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards.
This is not a manufactured crisis. You ever notice that Democrats, they often live in gated communities, they often have armed guards, the very things they don't want us to have. We have cartels, gangs, 4,000 homicides committed by illegals in 2 years. In 2 years, 30,000 sexual assaults. In 2 years, 100,000 violent assaults. 90% of all the heroin in America comes across that border. Human trafficking, including the trafficking of young girls into a life of hell and misery and prostitution. Where are all the self-proclaimed liberal compassion people? When are they looking out for these people? Look at these alarming numbers. According to the Department of Homeland Security, 1 million new illegal immigrants will cross that border by the end of this year. That sounds like a complete and utter breakdown of all law and order at the border, probably because they believe Donald Trump will build a wall. And so far, Border Patrol has apprehended nearly 300,000 individuals, which is a 97% increase over the previous year. And Border Patrol also recorded a 50% spike in the apprehensions of violent gang members. And get this, 20,000 children smuggled across the border during the month of December alone, and many of which faced a horrible journey where rape, kidnapping, and assault is prevalent. That's not a manufactured crisis. And while most illegal immigrants, I concede, maybe 98%, they come in search of a better life. They're not respecting our laws and sovereignty. But if I am correct in saying just 2% of that million have bad intentions, that is a serious, sizable national security disaster. 2% out of a million, that would be 20,000 known criminals we would be allowing into the country. And meanwhile, the heroin, the fentanyl, continue to pour across the southern border. It is wreaking havoc on tens of thousands of Americans in small towns and big cities. So to all the weak Republicans now in the Senate, all you never-Trumpers, all the Democrats that used to support Trump when Obama was president on this issue, you know, that are challenging the president's emergency act to overturn the president's emergency action, it will be vetoed. There will not be enough votes to override that veto, meaning the president will keep his promise and continue to build the wall that he started. And ultimately, the border emergency will be upheld in a court of law. Why? Legislatively, the president has the law on his side. 10 U.S.C. 284 clearly enables the executive branch to construct, quote, roads and fences to block drug trafficking and other smuggling operations. And the president's top job, if you recall, constitutionally, is that of commander-in-chief. He has the responsibility to protect this country and our people, and he's committed to keeping that promise. And let me add tonight, any of you in Washington or any of you in any state, well, that takes no responsibility, no action to secure our southern border. Now you know what is going on, and you are completely complicit in the thousands of violent assaults, murders, rapes, drug-related deaths that will happen this year as a result of your open border policies. In other words, you're aiding and abetting these crimes. You're letting them continue. And that goes for sanctuary states and cities. You, too, are complicit. You're aiding and abetting this criminal activity and violence against some American citizens. Any state lawmaker, governor, back sanctuary policies, guess what? You bear part of the blame. You help facilitate this. All right, we'll have a lot more on this with Lindsey Graham in a few minutes. But first, we turn to a fake political storm that is brewing in Washington as we turn tonight to Hannity Watch on the hate Trump mob in Washington. Now, as we predicted, House Democrats, they are waging a political war on any and all things Trump through a seemingly never-ending series of absurd investigations, the widest net ever cast among several key committees, as a matter of fact, up to 8. And now that their 2-year fantasy to impeach the president over Russia collusion, well, now that that is proven false and falling by the wayside, rather than doing the honest thing, admitting they were wrong, apologizing, nope, no acknowledgement, just move on to the next conspiracy, the next lie, the next attempt to destroy a duly elected president. Put it simply, Democrats are not unabashedly reverting to modern-day McCarthyism. They are now asking the question, are you or have you ever been a supporter of President Trump? It's that sick. Now let's look at, for example, lying Adam Schiff as he hired, get this, MSNBC legal analyst and known conspiracy theorist Daniel Goldman to lead his witch hunt against the president inside the House Intel Committee. Goldman, he was caught promoting what is now the debunked Steele dossier and the fake news, for example, about Michael Cohen in Prague. He was never there. And the problem is that even the author of the dirty dossier that he loves so much, Christopher Steele, he doesn't stand by his own dossier. Michael Cohen wasn't in Prague, and there weren't 2 hookers peeing in Donald Trump's bed in the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow. The now former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGeneva is encouraging every one of these witnesses, some 80-plus witnesses just to start, to go in and plead the Fifth. Why would anybody ever want to be a part of this circus and what is clearly a perjury trap, hiring a known conspiracy theorist, lying Adam Schiff? Where are the so-called news outlets covering this? Now, look at this. Even former Obama top aide David Axelrod gets it. And former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, they're warning Democrats that they are now headed down a dangerous path and clearly abusing their power. Axelrod warning, guess what? It looks like a witch hunt. Bloomberg warning this lurch leftward is not going to end well for the Democrats. And Democrats are now literally grasping at straws, unhinged, motivated by one thing, hating Trump every second, minute, hour of every day, just like their friends in the media mob. Trump-Russia collusion, a lie, based on a Clinton-bought and paid-for Russian lie document. How ironic. Which is why the mainstream media, the hate Trump media mob, constantly, they pivot. Okay, that story's not true. Let's forget we ever reported that. Let's go to the next lie. Let's go to the next conspiracy. Now that they're over their Russia collusion conspiracies, guess what? That's dead and buried, but they just move on like it never happened. Journalism in America is dead and buried, and so is the Democratic Party at the current moment. Joining us now, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is with us. Let's start with a party. Let's start with a party that can't even make a simple condemnation of virulent racism and anti-Semitism because they don't have the votes.
Well, they're afraid. They're afraid of the radical left. But this is going on all over the world, just not in the United States. The Labour Party in Britain is becoming more anti-Semitic by the day. Israel's the bad guy. The Palestinians are the oppressed. Israel gets rockets fired into Israel from Gaza by Hamas. They never say a word. They blame Israel when they fight back. So they're afraid not to impeach the president. They're afraid of getting a primary. They got a billionaire paying money to run against any Democrat who won't vote for impeachment. They got the radical left threatening to have a revolt inside the Democratic Party if you stand up against anti-Semitism because they hate Israel so much. That's pretty odd.
Senator, look, you've been in the forefront of trying to urge your Senate colleagues that this is a national emergency. I gave the statistics. Drugs, cartels, gangs, human trafficking, murder, rapes, assaults. And that's, again, that's only a tiny percentage, but the numbers are real for Americans. That's a crisis.
Well, what did we learn today? We had the Border Patrol Commissioner and the DHS Secretary Nielsen testify that family apprehensions have gone up 335%. Unaccompanied minor apprehensions have gone up 55% compared to last year. That if you're a family from Central America and you can make it to the United States, you will never be deported. You can be only held for 20 days and release you within the country. 2% of the unaccompanied minors who make it to America go back to their home country. Our laws are broken and we need a barrier. The most stunning testimony was a man who's been dealing in sex trafficking, a law enforcement official, and he said that most children brought into America come across the open area of the border because the smugglers are afraid to go through the points of entry. 87% of the people apprehended coming here illegally from Central America never go through a point of entry. We need barriers and we need to change our laws.
Senator, so the president, the Congress will veto, the president will veto. Congress doesn't have the votes to override the veto. Conclusion, Donald Trump gets the money to build his wall or continue to build the wall that he's been building.
Trump wins. That's the conclusion here. We'll sustain his veto. And let me remind your viewers that for every unaccompanied minor that comes to the United States, it costs us $375 a day to house these minors. They go through hell to get here. And on average, we're spending $136,000 per kid from the Treasury. This is a crisis. $1.6 billion going to be spent. We're approaching 1 million illegal immigrants by the end of the year. Our laws reward people for coming. We need to change our laws and we need to build a wall. Trump is going to win in Congress on the wall, and I'm going to pursue legal changes to make sure you can be held more than 20 days, that you're not going to be released into the country before you have an immigration hearing. If we don't stop that, they will always keep coming.
Well said. All right, Senator Graham leading in the Senate. Some of your colleagues, they need to grow a backbone or retire. Not you, though.
Stand with the president.
All right. Thank you so much. When we come back, Newt Gingrich, he weighs in on the controversy as it relates to Congresswoman Omar and the new radical, widest net ever cast, phony investigation. What should happen next? Straight ahead.
About the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country.
Congresswoman Omar caught on tape making vile anti-Semitic remarks suggesting that Jewish Americans hold dual allegiance to the U.S. and Israel. Republicans pushing for Omar to be removed from the House Foreign Affairs Committee over the controversy. Democrats don't have the vote to even use censure. Anyway, joining us now is former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, for reaction. And by the way, the host of the new podcast, Newt's World. What does it mean about a Democratic Party that has a severe bigotry, racist, and anti-Semitic problem and can't get enough votes to condemn it?
Well, I think it tells you how strong the forces of the left are now. There's a deep anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli bias on the left. There are a lot of people on the left who'd be very happy if Israel disappeared tomorrow and who feel 100% on the side of Hamas, even while it's firing rockets at Israeli cities. So I think what we've seen is, over the last 30 years, a growth in the anti-Semitic behavior on college campuses and a growing willingness by some Democratic politicians to be very openly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. And I think the second thing is that a lot of the younger militant members, whether they're anti-Israel or not, they are deeply opposed to Nancy Pelosi trying to exercise any discipline at all.
She's not the speaker anymore, clearly.
Pelosi is about...
Yeah, she's not the... I mean,
she's clearly losing... Look, she is losing control of the House. They may be forced in a desperation move to change the House rules to block Republicans from offering anything, which would, I think, lead to chaos. But she can't get her party to stay together. And if you're in a moderate district, if you're in a district that Trump carried, or if you're in a district that's heavily Jewish, and you're watching the Democrats go crazy, and you are a Democratic freshman running for re-election, this has to be a really decisive moment.
All right.
Who do you stay with?
Let me ask you this.
No.
So you come to power with the Republicans for the first time in 40 years. You and Bill Clinton decided you wanted to do great things for the country, and you ended up doing it. And I'm not a big fan of Bill Clinton, but you did balance the budget, which we haven't done since, and a lot of welfare reform, so many big things. He even said the era of big government is over, end of welfare as we know it. You guys found a way to govern, even though you had opposing views. You see now the Russia collusion narrative is collapsed. So now they just move on to the next thing, which is the widest net ever cast to basically look into any and all things Trump rather than govern. How does that end?
Well, I think it's going to end very badly, but let me be clear. This is not an investigation. This is an act of hate. These are people they're basically saying, if you worked for Donald Trump as a private citizen, we're going to try to destroy you. We're going to make you hire lawyers. We're going to make you go through public humiliation. I mean, these are normal, everyday folks who are not in the political arena. They're going to get called in front of some of these committees, and the most radical, vicious, nasty liberal Democrats are going to feel that they have a right to beat them up, to humiliate them, to lecture them. And I think this tells you, I mean, we're moving. I was thinking about, James Tarantino wrote The Hateful Six. He could have written, The Hateful Eight for the Democratic Committee chairman and made a movie out of it. Well, we have never seen, at least not since the Civil War, the kind of deliberate, vicious character assassination, not just at not at the president. I mean, President Trump's a big guy. If they want to fight with him, he can fight back. They're going after everyday folks.
When Adam Schiff hires, when the author of the Steele dossier, Christopher Steele, doesn't support his own dossier, but Adam Schiff hires the only conspiracy theorist and person that does believe it, that tells you a lot. But, when David Axelrod says, this is beginning to look like a witch hunt, this is like, and Mayor Bloomberg says, this lurch to the left, not going to end well. When people like that are saying things like that, I think if I was a Democrat, I might listen, but I don't see any hope that they ever would.
Well, you don't know what's going to happen yet, because the truth is, as all these candidates line up to run for president, I don't think any of them want to get in a fight where the left is taking them on. So you see, over 100 Democrat House members have co-sponsored a bill that eliminates any private sector insurance. That's a 15% position. You're going to see a Democratic Party unacceptable to most Americans.
No cows, no planes, no cars, no combustion engines. Everything's free, and we're going to confiscate all your money. Great idea.
Well, and no children. Remember?
Oh, yeah. You got to think twice about ever having any kids. And the world's ending in 12 years. All right. Speaker Newt Gingrich, thank you. When we come back, Trace Gallagher, shocking report, the latest with R. Kelly's explosive interview with Gayle King on CBS. Also, Lawrence Jones, we have exclusive Hannity tape tonight, confronting Congressman Jerry Nadler with questions about this witch hunt and endless investigations. And I have my closing arguments at the end of the show. And it's tied into the villain of the day. Straight ahead. All right, during an explosive interview with Gayle King on CBS, embattled singer R. Kelly denied sexual abuse allegations that have been leveled against him. Trace Gallagher tonight in our West Coast newsroom. He has the very latest. Trace, great job by Gayle King. I thought you did phenomenal.
Yeah, and she says she wasn't worried about him, felt threatened by him at all. But R. Kelly, as you know, Sean, was taken back into custody today, and it appears that he'll stay in jail until he comes up with $161,000 in back child support. But that could be the least of his problems, because Kelly is accused of sexually abusing 4 females, 3 of whom were underage at the time. Prosecutors say there is ample evidence to support the charges, including testimony from alleged victims and a reported videotape that allegedly shows Kelly having sex with a girl who who repeatedly states that she's only 14 years old. During that interview with Gayle King on CBS, R. Kelly says he's done, quote, lots of things wrong, but denies the latest charges. Watch this.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You killing me, man.
Yeah, Kelly could spend 30 years behind bars if he's found guilty. Kelly says people are trying to use his past to prosecute him now. The singer was acquitted of child pornography charges back in 2008. CBS also interviewed 2 women who live with R. Kelly, including one whose parents think she's being held against her will. Kelly said the parents sold him their daughters, later saying they handed them over. The parents, of course, deny that. Sean.
That perhaps the most insane part of what he said today. Scary interview. Great job by Gayle King. Trace Gallagher in our West Coast newsroom. Also today, our friend, Fox News contributor, investigative reporter for the Hannity Show, Lawrence Jones. He was on Capitol Hill. He tried to ask House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler about his investigation into President Trump. Watch this.
Do you trust the Mueller investigation, Chairman? You just opened up your own investigation. Do you have any comment about that? You said that the president has instructed justice. Do you have any evidence of that, sir?
Joining us now, Fox News contributor, our own Lawrence Jones is with us. Lawrence, he wasn't that communicative, but that's the guy on the first day that said he's guilty of obstructing justice. In part because he fired Comey, but even Comey had said, no, he could fire me for any reason or no reason at all, legally and constitutionally.
That's exactly right, Sean, and he wasn't willing to provide us with any type of evidence of it because there's no evidence of it. What we're seeing right now, Sean, is that the Democrats are saying that Mueller's investigation is wrapping up. And everything that they expected him to come up with, there's been no evidence of it. And so after saying they trust the Mueller investigation, now they want to conduct an investigation of their own. There's no evidence of it. And this is why libertarians like myself, that are on the conservative wing of the movement, have always questioned the power that the FBI has and members of Congress have, because now they target political opponents when they don't get what they expected.
All right, Lawrence, great work today, and I know you'll be back on Capitol Hill a lot. Thank you so much for that tape and that story and sharing it with us. Now, we told you a story yesterday. A conservative watchdog group filed a complaint with the FEC alleging Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her chief of staff illegally funneled nearly $1 million in contributions from political action committees to private companies. My next guest says this could, in fact, have her end up in jail with jail time. Joining us now, former FEC Commissioner Bradley Smith. Commissioner, thank you for being with us. Maybe Pleasure. You could explain it to the average person. It gets complicated, but it really is simple.
Okay, well, let's not get ahead of the game and start talking. The penalties can include jail time for knowing and willful violations, but we're a long way from that. They haven't even filed formal responses. But quickly, what is it they're accused of doing? These two PACs, Justice Democrats and brand new Congress, took in over $3 million. They then paid about $1.5 million to an LLC owned by Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff, this fellow Chakrabarti. Now, what was done with that money, we don't know. Chakrabarti says he didn't take any salary, didn't take any profits, but then the question is, what did they do with it? It looks like a shell game in which they spent the money probably to subsidize a number of different candidate campaigns, and that would be major reporting violations and major violations of the amounts that one can spend on campaigns. So we don't know all the facts yet. There could be an explanation that I don't know, but I've got to tell you, I've been in this business for 25 years. I look at it, it looks like a shell game, and it certainly merits a major investigation by the FEC. And we should remember
what is the process from here? Explain how what would be in this 25 years. What is the next step process?
Yeah, the FEC will open an investigation, and they'll have a lot of different questions to ask about all the principles involved, who knew what, who was controlling what entity, why money was paid over, what expenses were for. And at the end, you could end up with very significant civil fines, or again, if it were found to be a knowing and willful effort to violate the law, possible criminal penalties, but we're ways from that. But I really want to emphasize one other thing here, Sean, if I can, which is Ocasio-Cortez is going to vote with all the Democrats in the House on Friday for this H.R. 1 to put more restrictions on ordinary Americans, but they don't want to abide by the restrictions they already have in place. And I think that's a big issue, regardless of what comes out of this investigation.
Well said. We talk a lot about Hillary Clinton and the dossier and how the money for the dossier was paid. Donna Brazile said that Hillary controlled the money at the DNC at the time, but you had Hillary campaign money, DNC money that she supposedly was in control of, and I believe Donna Brazile funneled to a law firm, Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie hires Fusion GPS, an op research firm. They hire a foreign national, Christopher Steele. He uses dubious Russian sources, now debunked Russian sources, to create a series of documents that become a dossier. That sound like a campaign finance violation to you?
It's probably not. You can pay a foreigner to do work for you. It sounds like a lot of other problems, but just doing that payment probably is not a campaign finance violation.
Well, it's certainly not. You're not paying a law firm. You're just funneling the money through the law firm. Why do I think if I did it, I'd be in trouble?
That's right, and one might wonder about whether it should have been reported differently, which could be a civil penalty for inaccurate reporting.
And it's only if Hannity does it, then throw him in jail. Chairman, thank you. We appreciate it. When we come back, we have breaking news on the deep state. Devin Nunes will weigh in on the Democrats' endless investigations and where do we go from the abuse of power scandal. Also, a new segment we're calling our closing argument tonight. You don't want to miss it. Straight ahead. Forward any conspiracy theory that they can just to try and take down the president. As a reminder, most of the crazy stories they have put forward have all been proven false. We have the evidence. This is only a tiny bit of it.
Multiple U.S. officials with direct knowledge of the briefings tell CNN that classified documents on Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. election presented last week to President Obama and to President-elect Trump included allegations that Russian operatives claimed to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump.
A sort of dossier of alleged dirt that the Russians allegedly say they allegedly have on Donald Trump. Alleged dirt that they allegedly used to allegedly cultivate him as basically a Russian asset.
You get the person's phone records. Here they see these calls to the blocked number, and now there seems to be good evidence that that was probably President Trump.
We begin with a new report that Paul Manafort, the president's former campaign chairman, paid secret visits, multiple ones, to Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. This is according to The Guardian.
President Trump directed his attorney to lie to Congress.
By the way, this is just a preview of coming attractions. Wait till we have some big things planned. Joining us now with a reaction, Congressman Devin Nunes. Congressman, let's go with what we do know, and that is they rigged the investigation into Hillary. Even James Baker, the general counsel under Comey, wanted to indict Hillary. Everyone was warned in August of 2016 the dossier was paid for by Hillary, not verified. Frauds committed multiple times on the FISA court, and nobody yet has been held accountable. Why?
I just want to make sure first you're not going to beat me out with those loud beeps.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You don't lie. Lying Adam Schiff. It's not. We don't say that about you.
Well, Sean, I think what you saw today is this is just another example of where you're going to need the beep soon, because you saw a fake news story this morning that leaked out, another fake news story this afternoon dealing with the Cohen testimony. And it's really becoming a circus around here, and it's like Groundhog Day, right? We get up, it's the same old thing. Now the Democrats are saying they're running a real investigation. Well, if they're running a real investigation, they wouldn't have staffers leak out things that end up not being true, which is what happened this morning with the so-called changed testimony. That's what we've been dealing with around here for 2 years. So to answer your question, what's going to happen, we are preparing a criminal referral that we will present to the Attorney General at the appropriate time.
For
many crimes, the obvious ones that you would know about would be lying to Congress, but we will also be looking at FISA abuse and all the other matters that we've been looking into, and it will probably be one
then let me ask you this.
large referral.
How soon will these criminal referrals be coming?
We're probably going to be prepared in the next 2 to 3, 4 weeks. One of the things that is coming up, so don't mind all the shiny balls that you see running around Congress here with the so-called new investigation. Just ignore that. What people should be looking out for is next week, on March 14th, a federal judge down in Florida has ordered the release of depositions by Christopher Steele, who is supposedly the author of the dossier,
I saw that.
and
Yep.
David Kramer, who pled the fifth to this committee, who we know was handling and moving the dossier around to press outlets. That's really going to be critical. So we have not ever interviewed Christopher Steele, and we don't know what David Kramer would say because he pled the fifth. So this could be critical. It may be nothing, but it could be critical for our referral.
You've seen it all. We expect the Mueller report maybe even as early as this week. We know that all of these documents, all of these interviews, we know all of this will eventually become public. You're convinced that Mueller can't possibly have anything on collusion at all because there was none.
Well, there was no collusion. The only collusion occurred between the Democrats and the Russians, and that we still are trying to get to the bottom of. Now, there's this obstruction route, which we don't know what Mueller's going to say on that. It seems pretty far-fetched to me. But if you look at the Mueller indictments, they read like Russian spy novels, but at the end of the day, they don't have anything. They sound like Russian spy novels, but they don't have anything.
And Andrew Weissman was briefed in the middle of all of this. How interesting. All right. We look forward to it. We're going to follow it. Congressman Devin Nunes, thank you for that update. Finally, things are happening, which I've been telling you it will. All right. When we come back, new segment called our Closing Argument. Plus, it's related to the villain of the day. You need to hear this as we continue. All right, tonight's closing argument, a bit of a history lesson. Now, while Democrats, they downplay the humanitarian crisis on the southern border, it's immoral to build walls, well, they continue with their nonstop climate-shaming hysteria. Of course, they're pushing the $94 trillion Green New Deal as a front for their radical far-left socialist agenda, scaring you that the world is going to end in 12 years from now, sounding more like a doomsday cult than a serious set of ideas for 2020. But remember this. It's not new. This is the history. Look at this. June 29, 1989, an article from the AP. A UN panel warned that we only had until the year 2000 to take on global warming, even predicting that, quote, entire nations are going to be wiped off the face of the earth. So tonight I want you to see the agenda for what it is, bait, switch, scare tactic. This is not designed to solve climate change. It is designed to trick you into supporting their radical socialist views and get rid of cows and planes and cars, etc. Now, by the way, the government telling you what you're allowed to drive, what you're not allowed to drive, what you can eat, not eat, fly, don't fly. But don't worry, we'll continue to put their hypocrisy and far-left agenda on full display. All right, and that is our closing argument. Time for our villain of the day. There he is, Chuck Schumer. Why? Because when it comes to border security and the wall, he's a huge flip-flopper.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally. To so many Americans, we do not want the wall to be a symbol of America, much preferring the Statue of Liberty be that symbol.
All politics, phony hypocrites. All right, we're not the hate Trump media, never will be. Late night.